After I came out of the coma, my doctor whispered, "Your son-in-law paid me to inject you with this." I refused. I read the label and the words stuck in my throat. The traitor I considered my son was hiding behind a mask of family love. I didn't let it go. You won't believe what I did. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The light hurt first. Then came the beeping, steady, mechanical, somewhere to my left. I tried to move my hand and felt resistance, something tugging at my arm, plastic. A tube. Hospital. My mouth tasted like rust and chemicals. I blinked against the fluorescent glare, trying to focus on the white ceiling tiles above me. One had a water stain shaped like Ohio. I stared at it, using it as an anchor while my brain struggled to catch up with my body. What happened? The door opened. Footsteps approached, measured, professional. A man in a white coat appeared at the edge of my vision, his face coming into focus as he leaned over the bed, middle-aged, with gray threading through his temples and tired eyes that looked like they'd seen too many emergencies. "Mr. Riley?" His voice carried relief. "Welcome back. I'm Dr. Mitchell. Can you tell me your full name?" "Percy." My voice came out as gravel. "Percy Riley." "Good. Do you know where you are?" "Hospital." I managed to turn my head slightly, taking in the IV stand, the monitors, the oxygen tube at my nose. "Emory?" "That's right. Emory University Hospital." He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. That struck me as odd. Doctors usually stood, kept things brief. "How are you feeling?" "Weak." I tried to swallow, my throat screaming for water. "Confused. How long have I been here?" 3 days. You were brought in by ambulance. Unresponsive." 3 days. The words hung in the sterile air between us, not making sense. I closed my eyes, reaching for memory. Fragments came back in pieces, like a puzzle dumped from its box. I remember dinner. The images surfaced slowly. My dining room. The table I'd refinished myself last spring. My daughter and her husband. Then nothing. Edith. I could see her clearly now, setting down a casserole dish, steam rising from the chicken she'd made. Her husband Craig beside her, pouring wine into my glass, that easy smile on his face. We'd talked about their vacation plans, something about the coast. I'd taken a bite of chicken, sipped the wine, and then darkness. "Mr. Riley." Dr. Mitchell's tone shifted, became more careful. "Your toxicology report came back yesterday. We found traces of aconitine in your system. It's a rare plant-based poison." The word hit me like a physical blow. My fingers found the bed rail, gripped it. "Poison?" I forced myself to look at him directly. "Someone poisoned me?" "Based on the concentration levels and symptom timeline, yes. Most likely ingested at home, during a meal." The dinner. The last normal moment of my life. I saw it again. The casserole dish, the wine glass, Craig's smile. Had it been in the food? The drink? My stomach turned. "We had to pump your system," Dr. Mitchell continued. "You were in critical condition when you arrived. Your heart rate was dangerously low, pupils dilated. If the paramedics had arrived 10 minutes later..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Someone wanted me dead. The thought settled over me like ice water. Not an accident. Not food poisoning or some freak medical event. Intentional. Calculated. Someone had put poison in my food or drink and watched me consume it. I looked at the monitor beside the bed. My heart rate spiked on the screen, numbers climbing as the reality sank in. 63 years old. Retired from running my restaurant for 5 years now. Living quietly in the house I'd bought 30 years ago in Grant Park. No enemies I could think of. No disputes, no debts, no drama. Just dinner with my daughter and son-in-law. My hand moved automatically toward the bedside table, reaching for my phone. Edith needed to know. She'd be worried sick. 3 days without hearing from me, she would have called, probably come by the house. I need to call Edith. My fingers stretched toward the table. She needs to know. "Mr. Riley, wait." Dr. Mitchell's hand came up, stopping me mid-reach. His face tightened, jaw muscles working. "Before you make any calls, there's something else you need to hear. Something about your son-in-law." My hand froze, suspended above the table. "Craig?" A cold sensation spread through my chest, different from the weakness. "What about Craig?" Dr. Mitchell studied my face for a long moment, and I saw something in his expression that made my pulse jump again. hesitation, burden, the look of a man carrying information he wished he didn't have. "He was here," the doctor said finally, each word deliberate. "Yesterday evening, while you were still unconscious." The hospital room seemed to shrink. The beeping machines faded to background noise. I stared at Dr. Mitchell, my hands still frozen in midair, waiting. "What did Craig do?" The doctor leaned back in his chair, fingers laced together. He looked uncomfortable, more than uncomfortable, burdened. "He came to my station around 9 p.m. Night shift, fewer people around." Mitchell paused, choosing his words with the precision of a man who'd already given this statement to police. "He had an envelope." I lowered my hand slowly to the bed rail, gripping it, waiting. "He said you were suffering, that you'd want peace." Mitchell's jaw tightened. "Then he showed me a vial and offered $15,000 cash if I'd inject it while you slept." The words didn't register at first. They were too absurd, too disconnected from reality. Craig, my son-in-law, who'd married Edith 7 years ago, who called me Pops, and borrowed my tools and ate at my table every Sunday, had tried to bribe a doctor to kill me. "Show me." My voice came out steady, controlled. "The vial." Dr. Mitchell reached into his white coat pocket, pulled out his phone. His fingers moved across the screen, then he handed it to me. "It's with police now, but I photographed it. Here." My hand shook as I took the phone. The image was clear, a small glass vial in an evidence bag, label visible. I zoomed in with my thumb, reading the text that blurred and refocused. Succinylcholine 20 ml. I knew that drug, not from personal experience, but from crime shows Edith and I used to watch together, before she married Craig, before she stopped visiting as often. "That's a paralytic," I said, barely audible. "Stops breathing." "Yes." Mitchell stood, walked to the window, staring out at the Atlanta skyline. Morning light strengthened behind the blinds. He couldn't meet my eyes. "It causes respiratory paralysis. Within minutes, you would have stopped breathing. Looked like you died peacefully in your sleep." The pieces fell into place with brutal clarity. "The dinner." I heard my own voice as if from a distance. "He poisoned me at home. When that didn't work fast enough, he tried to finish it here." Mitchell turned from the window, finally looking at me directly. I refused. I reported him immediately to hospital administration and called security. They contacted Atlanta police. Officers took him from the parking lot last night around 10. My other hand formed a fist against the bedsheet, the only outward sign of what I felt, rage so cold and complete it turned my blood to ice. Not the hot anger of impulse, something far more dangerous. 2 murder attempts. Craig hadn't just put poison in my food on a whim. He'd planned it. Obtained aconitine, a rare poison, not something you picked up at CVS. Mixed it into my dinner. Watched me eat. Waited for me to collapse. And when the ambulance took me away, still breathing, still alive, he'd come here with cash and a vial of paralytic to finish what he'd started. Premeditated. Calculated. Cold. After a long silence, I spoke. "Good. That's good." Dr. Mitchell's eyebrows rose slightly. Whatever reaction he'd expected, calm acceptance wasn't it. "Mr. Riley, I need to ask. Do you have any idea why he would—" "My will." I reached for the water cup on the bedside table with deliberate slowness. Took a sip, composed myself. "My house. Everything goes to my daughter when I die. Craig's been unemployed for 3 years." Understanding crossed Mitchell's face. "I see. He's been living off Edith's teacher salary, off the money I give them for holidays and car repairs." I set the cup down carefully, the small action helping me think. "The house in Grant Park is worth $600,000 now, maybe more. And there's my pension, my savings, everything. But it goes to your daughter, not him." "Community property state," I said flatly. "He'd have access to it all." The machines beeped steadily. My heart rate showed on the monitor, elevated but dropping now. Not from calm, but from something else. Focus. The same focus I'd used building my restaurant from nothing, turning it into the most successful soul food place in Old Fourth Ward before I sold it. Focus born from necessity. Dr. Mitchell watched me with concern, probably wondering if I'd go into shock. But shock required surprise, and I was already past surprise, through it, emerging on the other side into territory I'd never visited before. Cold clarity. I stared at the ceiling tiles again, at that water stain shaped like Ohio. The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a cart rattled past. Normal hospital sounds. But nothing was normal anymore. Craig had tried to kill me. Twice. Edith. I didn't know yet what Edith knew. That question sat in my chest like a stone. My only daughter, my child who'd lost her mother to cancer when she was 16, who I'd raised alone, put through college, walked down the aisle. Had she known? Had she helped? Or was she a victim too, married to a man who'd kill her father for inheritance money? Mr. Riley? Dr. Mitchell's voice pulled me back. Would you like me to call someone? A friend? Your daughter should know you're awake. No? The word came out quiet, but absolute. Not yet. I need to think first. He nodded slowly, recognizing something in my tone that made him accept it without argument. I understand. A detective will want to speak with you later today. Take your time. Rest. He moved toward the door, then paused. You're safe here. Security's been notified. No one gets in without clearance. The door clicked shut behind him. I lay back against the pillows, staring at that ceiling stain. My pulse slowed on the monitor, numbers dropping, settling into rhythm, not from relaxation, from decision. For the first time in years, maybe decades, my mind worked with perfect, cold precision, like it had in the early days of my restaurant, when I'd had to outthink suppliers who tried to cheat me, competitors who undercut my prices, critics who dismissed soul food as not serious cuisine. I'd survived all of that, built something lasting, and now Craig thought I'd die quietly, conveniently, leaving everything to Edith. To him, he was wrong. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. I breathed, shallow but controlled. Plans formed in the spaces between heartbeats, not in rage, in strategy. Detective Collins found me in the hallway outside my room, clipboard in hand, discharge papers waiting for my signature. I'd been at Emory for 10 days total, 3 unconscious, 7 recovering. Long enough to memorize the pattern of those ceiling tiles. Long enough to plan. Mr. Riley, before you go, you should know. Craig Brennan posted bail yesterday. $50,000. I kept my pen moving across the discharge form. Steady loops, no tremor. Who paid it? Your daughter. From a joint account in both your names. The pen continued its path. Signature complete. I looked up at her. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, gray blazer with a coffee stain near the pocket. Detective Sarah Collins, according to her card. My money paid for his freedom. I handed her the clipboard. Noted. What happens next with the case? Preliminary hearing in 3 weeks. DA is building attempted murder charges. We have the doctor's testimony, the vial, the cash he tried to pay with. Good. She studied my face, probably expecting more reaction. Anger, maybe. Fear. I gave her neither. You'll need to testify eventually, she continued. Are you comfortable with that? Absolutely. The taxi ride from Emory to Buckhead took 20 minutes through midday traffic. I watched Atlanta slide past the window, familiar streets suddenly foreign, like returning from a long voyage to find your hometown rearranged. The driver tried small talk. I didn't respond. He gave up after 2 blocks. We pulled onto Habersham Road. Number 2847 stood exactly as I'd left it. Brick colonial, white shutters, azaleas I'd planted 15 years ago now blooming along the walkway. I paid the driver, climbed out, and stood on the sidewalk, staring at my own house. Crime scene. That's what it was. The place where someone fed me poison and watched me eat it. A neighbor, Mrs. Patterson from 2 doors down, waved from her garden. I didn't wave back. The front door opened before I reached it. Edith stood in the entrance, face pale, eyes red from crying or lack of sleep, or both. Behind her, Craig hovered in the shadows of the foyer. Dad! Her voice broke on the word. Thank goodness you're home. We were so worried. Stop! She froze mid-step, hand extended toward me. Dad, please, let me explain. I said stop. Craig moved forward, hands raised in that universal gesture of harmlessness, like a man approaching a spooked horse. Mr. Riley, sir, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. That doctor misinterpreted what I looked at him, really looked at him. 37 years old, my height, soft around the middle from 3 years without steady employment. The man who'd tried to kill me. Twice. Do not speak to me. My voice came out flat, emotionless. Do not come near me. Stay out of my way. I walked past them both, through the foyer I'd renovated 12 years ago, past the living room furniture I'd helped Edith pick out after her mother died. Everything familiar, everything poisoned now. The study door was closed. I pulled the key from my pocket, the only room in the house they couldn't enter, my sanctuary during the years I'd run the restaurant, where I'd done the books and planned menus, and made the hard decisions that kept us afloat. I unlocked it, stepped inside, closed the door behind me and turned the deadbolt. The click echoed through the hallway. Let them hear it. "Dad!" Edith's voice came through the wood, muffled but desperate. "Please, can we talk? I know you're upset, but—" "Go away, Edith. I love you. Please believe that." I didn't answer. Silence, I'd learned decades ago, could be more devastating than any words. Her footsteps retreated. Whispers in the hallway, hers and Craig's, urgent and low. Then quiet. I stood at my mahogany desk, the one solid piece of furniture I'd brought from the restaurant when I sold it, pulled open drawers, retrieved files I hadn't looked at in months. Years, some of them. The will came first. 3 pages, professionally drafted by some attorney whose name I barely remembered. Dated 3 years ago, 6 months after my wife, Sarah, passed from the cancer that ate through her pancreas in 4 months. I, Percy James Riley, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath all my worldly possessions to my daughter, Edith Marie Riley. Everything, house, savings, investments, the Lexus in the garage. 2 million and change, total. All to Edith. All to Craig, really, through community property law, bank statements next. Regions Bank, accounts I'd held for 30 years. Checking, $87,000. Savings, $340,000. Joint account with Edith that I'd opened when she turned 30, in case of emergencies, now showing $75,000. It had been $125,000 last time I checked. $50,000 gone. Craig's bail money, investment portfolios from Fidelity, retirement accounts I'd been building since I was 25, $680,000. Stock portfolio, $260,000. Bonds, $200,000. I spread them across the desk in organized rows, numbers on paper. Assets, net worth, the reason someone wanted me dead. House deed last. 2847 Habersham Road. Purchased 1998 for $320,000, stretching every dollar I had back then, believing in the neighborhood when others didn't. Now worth $850,000, maybe more. Buckhead had grown up around me. The math was simple. Craig needed money. I had it. Edith would inherit it. Craig had access through Edith. All he needed was for me to die. I sat in my leather chair, the one that molded to my back perfectly after 15 years of use, and stared at the documents. Evidence of vulnerability. Everything I'd built, everything Sarah and I had worked for, had become target coordinates on a map. The house settled around me. Footsteps overhead. Edith and Craig in the master bedroom. They'd taken it over while I was hospitalized. I heard their voices, low and tense, arguing, probably, about money, about me, about what comes next. Let them worry. I pulled out my phone, searched for estate attorneys in Atlanta, scrolled through websites, credentials, client reviews. Margaret Huang's profile caught my attention. 22 years experience in estate planning and asset protection. 5 stars across all platforms. Offices in Midtown, 10 minutes from here. I didn't wait for morning. Opened my laptop, navigated to her contact form. The clock on the wall read 1:47 a.m. My fingers moved across the keyboard. "Ms. Huang, I need to restructure my estate immediately. Someone tried to kill me for my inheritance. I'm willing to pay premium rates for urgent consultation. Percy Riley." I hit send, closed the laptop, looked again at my will, the document that almost got me killed. Tomorrow, this changes. Everything changes. I stood, walked to the study window overlooking the back garden. Outside, Buckhead lay dark and quiet under a quarter moon. My reflection stared back from the glass. Thinner than before the poisoning, harder. Lines around my eyes I didn't remember. A man who survived, more than that. A man preparing to win. The response came faster than I expected. I opened my laptop at dawn, 6:47 a.m., to find Margaret Huang's reply, already waiting. "Mr. Riley, I've cleared my afternoon. Come at 2 p.m. Bring all estate documents. MH. Short. Direct. Exactly what I needed. I showered, dressed in clothes that hung looser than they should. 10 days in a hospital bed had stripped weight I couldn't afford to lose. The mirror showed a stranger. Gaunt cheeks, gray stubble I usually kept trimmed. I looked like what I was, someone recovering from attempted murder. Good. Let them see weakness. Let them think I was vulnerable. Downstairs, I found Edith in the kitchen making coffee. She turned when I entered, hope flashing across her face. Dad! Morning. I'm making breakfast. Just coffee. I poured my own cup, black. I have errands. Errands? Are you sure you're strong enough? I could drive you. I'm fine. I walked out before she could press further, grabbed my keys from the hook by the door. The Lexus sat in the garage where I'd left it 11 days ago. I climbed in, adjusted the seat, gripped the steering wheel. My hands remembered the position even if they felt weaker than before. The engine started smooth. I backed out slowly, aware of Edith watching from the kitchen window. Let her wonder. Midtown Atlanta at 1:30 p.m. Traffic thick, but moving. I found parking in the garage beneath the promenade building, took the elevator to the 14th floor. Huang's office occupied the corner suite. Glass walls, modern furniture, impressive view of the skyline. The receptionist led me to a conference room. Margaret Huang appeared 2 minutes later, late 40s, Korean-American, tailored suit, efficient handshake. She carried a leather portfolio and iPad. Mr. Riley, thank you for coming. She gestured to a chair. Tell me everything. I did. The dinner with Craig and Edith, the aconitine poisoning, waking from the coma, Dr. Mitchell's revelation about the bribe attempt, Craig's arrest, the bail Edith paid with my money, the will that left everything to my daughter. Huang took notes on her iPad, asking sharp questions at intervals. How long had Craig been unemployed? When was the will drafted? Had I added Edith to any accounts recently? Did I have life insurance? No life insurance, I answered. Canceled it after my wife died. Didn't see the point. That probably saved your life. No policy means less immediate motive. She set down the iPad. Mr. Riley, I'll be direct. If you simply change your will now and then die, even from natural causes, your daughter will contest it. She'll claim undue influence, mental distress from the poisoning. It'll tie up your estate for years in court. What's the alternative? Irrevocable living trust. You transfer all assets into it. During your life, you maintain complete control, can change anything, access everything, but you designate a different beneficiary for after death. I leaned forward. How fast can this happen? If you're ready to proceed, 2 weeks for full asset transfer. The trust itself, I can establish today. What's the cost? For a state this size, with urgency. She named the figure without hesitation. $8,500. That includes trust creation, all transfer paperwork, and filing fees. When do we start? She smiled. Small, professional, but genuine. Now. The paperwork took 3 hours. Forms requiring signatures, notarizations, initial documentation, the trust name, the Percy J. Riley Revocable Living Trust. Grantor and trustee, me. Beneficiary during my life, me. Beneficiary after my death. Who did you want to designate? Huang asked, pen poised. American Cancer Society, Georgia chapter. She didn't ask why, just wrote it down. But I thought of Sarah, of those final 4 months watching cancer destroy her body. If my money was going somewhere, it would go toward fighting that disease. Not to Craig, never to Craig. I wrote the check for $8,500 without hesitation. First move in a game that would end with Craig having nothing. The drive home took 20 minutes. I parked in the garage, sat in the car for a moment, gathering myself. Time to perform. Inside, Edith was cooking dinner, chicken soup, the smell filling the house. She brought me a bowl in the study, face anxious but hopeful. Dad, I made your favorite. Like Mom used to make. I took the bowl, studying her face, searching for guilt, for knowledge, for any sign she'd known what Craig planned. Found only worry and desperation. Thank you. Her shoulders dropped slightly. Relief. Are you feeling better? You seem calmer today. I'm tired, Edith. Just tired. She nodded, retreated. Left me alone with soup I didn't eat. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved carefully through the world. Slow steps. Accepting help. Playing the role of recovering invalid, while systematically dismantling everything Craig thought he'd inherit. Bank meetings explained as routine financial maintenance. The region's branch manager helped transfer accounts into the trust's name. Friendly, efficient, asked no questions about family drama. Fidelity required more paperwork, phone calls, verification. I handled it all from my study, door locked, speaking in low tones so Edith and Craig wouldn't overhear. The house deed required a trip to the Fulton County Recorder's office. Craig offered to drive me. I accepted. I know things have been tense, Mr. Riley. He kept his eyes on the road, voice carefully casual. I just want you to know, I'm here to help, whatever you need. That's kind of you, Craig. I appreciate it. Family takes care of family, right? I offered a thin smile. Right. At the recorder's office, I went in alone, filed the deed transfer. The clerk stamped it official. Property of the Percy J. Riley Revocable Living Trust. Effective immediately. Public record. Anyone could look it up. But Craig didn't look. I watched them both during those 2 weeks. Observed the way they argued in whispers that stopped when I approached. How Craig's eyes tracked me when he thought I wasn't looking. How Edith brought me meals like offerings, desperate for forgiveness I didn't give. They thought I was weak, recovering, defeated. Let them think it. 2 weeks after meeting Margaret Huang, I sat in my study reviewing the final transfer confirmations. Every asset, every dollar, every piece of property protected. If I died tomorrow, Craig and Edith would get nothing. The Cancer Research Organization would receive everything. I filed the documents in my safe, locked it, allowed myself a small smile. From upstairs, I heard Edith's voice rise, arguing with Craig. The words weren't clear, but the tone was. Stress, fear, money problems. My desk phone rang. I answered. Mr. Riley, it's Margaret Huang. The house deed transfer is recorded. Everything is complete. The trust is ironclad. Thank you. There's one more thing. She paused. My paralegal noticed something unusual. Someone ran a background check on you last week. Professional service? Expensive? The request came from a private investigation firm here in Atlanta. My smile faded. Do you know who hired them? The firm won't say, but I can guess. Your son-in-law is getting nervous. He knows something changed. He just doesn't know what. I hung up, sat back, stared at the ceiling tiles I'd memorized in the hospital. Craig was making moves too. The game wasn't one-sided. That evening, Craig knocked on the study door. I didn't answer the knock immediately. Let Craig wait. Let him knock again, harder this time. Knuckles against wood, creating an urgent rhythm. Then I stood slowly, stretched my shoulders like a man with all the time in the world, and crossed the study to open the door myself. He filled the doorway, trying to look confident, failing spectacularly. His jaw was set, shoulders squared in what he probably thought was an intimidating stance, but his eyes betrayed him. Fear hiding behind rehearsed composure, like an actor who'd forgotten his lines halfway through opening night. Mr. Riley, we need to talk, man to man. Clear the air. I stepped aside without a word. Close the door. He entered, walked to the center of my study like he owned it. Stood there while I returned to my desk chair, leather creaking as I settled in. If he thought standing over me would create some psychological advantage, he was badly mistaken. This was my space, my territory. I know you're angry, I understand, but there's been a serious misunderstanding about what happened at the hospital. I said nothing, just watched him. Let the silence build until it became uncomfortable. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. That vial the doctor mentioned? Craig's voice gained false momentum, like he'd practiced this speech in front of a mirror. I found it in your medicine cabinet when I was looking for aspirin. I was concerned, genuinely concerned, about you having something so dangerous just sitting there. I only wanted the doctor to check if you were taking medications that could interact badly with your prescriptions. You're lying, he blinked. I'm not. I swear. The police have it completely wrong. The doctor misunderstood my intentions. I pulled out a small notebook from my desk drawer, the leather one I'd used for years tracking restaurant inventory, supplier payments, employee hours, flipped to a specific page. Craig's eyes tracked the movement, and I saw him register that I'd been documenting things, planning. Look, he continued, voice hardening when I didn't respond to his fiction. I know you visited an estate attorney. I know you're planning to change your will. That's your right, obviously. But if you cut Edith out because of me, I'll fight it. I'll get lawyers, good ones, who'll prove you're acting under trauma, not thinking clearly. You survived a poisoning, you're elderly. I'm 63. And any judge will see that you're making decisions based on temporary anger, not sound judgment. I looked up from my notebook, met his eyes directly. Are you threatening me, Craig? I'm protecting my wife, your daughter. The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled taut. I let it build, picked up my pen the Mont Blanc Sarah had given me for our 20th anniversary, and wrote a number on the notepad with slow, deliberate strokes. Large, clear digits. Then I turned the pad around and slid it across the polished mahogany toward him. Craig's hand trembled as he picked it up, read the number, set it down fast like it had burned his fingers. $252,000. How much do you owe me, Craig? What? What are you talking about? You've lived in my house for 5 years, completely rent-free. This house, in this neighborhood, rents for $4,200 a month on the current market. I checked. 5 years equals 60 months. Do the math. His face went from flush to pale in seconds. We're family. You never asked for rent. Edith is your daughter, for crying out loud. $252,000. That's what you owe me. I want it back. You have 60 days, or you and Edith move out. I don't have that kind of money. You know I don't. Nobody has that kind of cash just sitting around. Then I suggest you start packing. Craig's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. His face cycled through expressions, disbelief, anger, panic, faster than I could track them all. Behind him, footsteps pounded on the stairs, fast, urgent. Edith appeared in the doorway, face flushed, breathing hard like she'd run up from the first floor. Dad, what's happening? Craig, what did you do? Craig turned to her, and I saw the exact moment he made the calculation, the decision to shift blame, to reframe himself as the victim, to drive the wedge deeper between father and daughter. Your father wants $250,000, he said, voice rising toward hysteria. Or he's throwing us out, his own daughter, out on the street, homeless. Edith's eyes went wide. She looked at me and tears began forming before she even spoke. Dad, please. We don't have that kind of money. You know we don't. This is cruel. After everything we've been through, after you were in the hospital, this is how you treat us. I stood, walked around the desk with measured steps, stopped 3 feet from my daughter, close enough to see the mascara starting to run down her cheeks, the way her hands twisted together, fingers lacing and unlacing. Your husband tried to murder me, Edith, twice. First with poison in my own dining room, then with a vial of paralytic at the hospital. And you paid his bail without asking me, without even calling to see if I was okay with using my money, $50,000 of my money, to free the man who tried to kill me. She flinched like I'd slapped her, looked away down at the floor. So yes, I continued, voice quiet but absolutely final. You have 60 days. Find the money, or find somewhere else to live. That's more time than Craig gave me when he put poison in my food. I walked past them both, left them standing in my study among my books, my awards from the restaurant, my photographs of Sarah, climbed the stairs to the guest bedroom, the small room at the end of the hall with the single bed and cheap furniture, because they'd taken over my master suite during my hospital stay. Behind me, I heard Edith start to cry, heard Craig start making excuses, his voice a low rumble of justification and blame, and let me explain. I closed the door, turned the lock, and for the first time since waking up in that hospital bed 3 weeks ago, I slept soundly. Morning light woke me, bright Georgia sun streaming through the guest room window, 7 a.m. according to my phone. I'd slept 9 hours without interruption. No nightmares about poison or hospital machines or the feeling of dying. Just dark, restful nothing. I showered, dressed, and descended the stairs to find Edith waiting in the kitchen like a ghost haunting her own life. She looked like she hadn't slept at all, eyes red and swollen, hair uncombed, still wearing yesterday's clothes. The coffee maker was already running, filling the room with its bitter aroma. I poured myself a cup. Black. Didn't speak first. Dad, please. Her voice was hoarse. Can we talk reasonably? 60 days isn't enough time to find $250,000. I took a sip. Let the coffee burn my tongue. No, it isn't. Because you don't have it, and never will. Then why demand it? Why not just let us stay? We can work something out. A payment plan. Something. I set down my cup. Because your husband tried to kill me, and you helped him walk free. She opened her mouth, closed it, had no response to that truth. I called Margaret Huang that afternoon from my study, explained what I needed. By evening, she'd drafted the document, formal, legal, ironclad. I read it twice, checking every clause, then signed it. I presented it to Craig and Edith at the kitchen table at 7 p.m. A notary sat with us, Margaret's paralegal, a young woman with efficient hands and a neutral expression, witness to what came next. This is a promissory note, I explained, sliding the document across the table. It formalizes the debt. Sign it, and you have 60 days to pay in full or vacate the premises. Don't sign it, and I file eviction papers with the county tomorrow morning. Craig's voice came out bitter, sharp-edged. Some choice. It's more choice than you gave me when you poisoned my dinner. Edith pushed the document back across the table without looking at it, tears streaming down her face. How can you do this? I'm your daughter, your only child. Mom would be ashamed of you right now. She'd be disgusted. The mention of Sarah, my wife, dead 3 years from pancreatic cancer, hit harder than I expected. A blow under the ribs. But I kept my voice level, hard as stone. Your husband tried to kill me twice. What's cruel, Edith? Giving you a roof over your head for 5 years, rent-free, asking for nothing? Or slipping aconitine into my food and watching me eat it? You tell me which one is shameful, she whispered, barely audible over the kitchen clock's ticking. I didn't know he would actually. I never thought. But you knew something, and you said nothing. You chose him over me? I stood, walked away from the table, from my daughter's tears, from Craig's impotent anger, left the document sitting there, returned an hour later to find it signed. Both their signatures, shaky but legal. The notary had witnessed it, stamped it, left her card. They'd had no choice. The following weeks became a Cold War. 3 people living in the same house, avoiding each other like opposing armies, occupying shared territory. The house felt bigger and smaller simultaneously, vast stretches of silence punctuated by the sounds of other lives happening behind closed doors. I scheduled my existence around their absence, used the kitchen at 6 a.m. before they woke, making coffee in the dark quiet, ate meals in my study or guest room, left notes instead of speaking. Plumber coming Tuesday 10 a.m., taped to the bathroom mirror. Locked my door always. Moving boxes appeared gradually, first in the foyer, then the living room, then the hallway, stacked like a barricade. I watched from my study window as Craig loaded furniture into his car, the TV, his gaming console, other electronics, items to sell at pawn shops, probably. Watched Edith on the phone with apartment managers, her voice getting more desperate with each call, explaining their situation in increasingly creative ways. 3 weeks in, Craig tried one last angle, found me in the study late afternoon, knocked quietly, waited for permission before entering, almost polite. Mr. Riley, what if we paid you in installments? $500 a month for, however long it takes. I didn't look up from my papers. Calculated quickly in my head. At $500 monthly, that's 420 months. 35 years. You'd be 72, and I'd likely be deceased. Silence. Then, so is that a no? What do you think? He left without answering. I heard his footsteps retreat down the hall, heavier than when he'd entered. Week 5 brought a phone call. Detective Collins, her voice crisp and professional. Mr. Riley wanted to update you on the case. DA's office found the seller. Individual goes by dark merchant on a restricted marketplace. Sold your son-in-law a conitine extract in late February. We have the complete message history. Cryptocurrency transaction records. Shipping confirmation. It's airtight. I set down my pen. When's the trial? May 14th. Preliminary hearing next month, April 3rd. He's looking at 15 to 25 years if convicted on attempted murder charges. Satisfaction settled in my chest like warm liquor. Good. The 60th day arrived on a Tuesday in late May. Morning light filtered through the study windows, illuminating dust motes in the air. I drank coffee slowly, waiting. At 9 a.m. sharp, a moving truck pulled up outside. Not a professional operation. Budget movers from Craigslist. Two college-age kids in worn jeans. I watched from my leather chair as Craig and Edith loaded boxes, furniture, the brass lamps Sarah had picked out at an estate sale 20 years ago. Edith carried a box labeled Kitchen in black marker, set it carefully in the truck bed, returned for another. Her movements were mechanical, face blank. Shock, maybe, or acceptance. Craig directed the movers, barking instructions about weight distribution and fragile items, acting like this was his choice, his decision, his controlled exit. I saw through it. Desperation wearing a mask of control. By noon, the truck was loaded. Edith walked back into the house one last time. I heard her footsteps in the foyer, hesitating, starting toward the stairs, then stopping, then approaching my study. She appeared in the doorway, didn't enter, didn't ask permission. We're leaving now. Voice completely empty, hollowed out. I looked up from my papers, documents I wasn't actually reading, just props for this moment. Met her eyes, said nothing. I hope you're happy. You won. You got exactly what you wanted. Still I didn't speak. Do you even love me anymore? Her voice cracked on the question. Am I still your daughter? The question hung in the air between us like smoke. I could answer it, could say something that might bridge this chasm, offer some small mercy, leave a door open for future reconciliation. Instead, I returned my gaze to my papers. Goodbye, Edith. She stood there 3 seconds more. I counted them, then turned, walked away. Front door opened, closed. Truck engine started, diesel rumble in the quiet neighborhood. I set down my pen, walked to the window, watched the moving truck pull away from 2847 Habersham Road, watched it turn the corner onto Peachtree, disappear. The house was silent, empty. Mine again. My phone buzzed on the desk. Text from Detective Collins. Preliminary hearing tomorrow, 9 a.m. Your testimony required. I typed back, I'll be there. I looked around my study, the mahogany desk, the awards on the wall, the photos of Sarah smiling from frames on the bookshelf. My house. One back through strategy, patience, legal precision. Tomorrow, the courtroom. The next phase begins. The knock came late afternoon, 1 week before the eviction deadline. Soft, hesitant. Not Craig's knock. I opened the study door. Edith stood there, eyes red, hands twisted together. Dad, I need to tell you something. The truth. All of it. I stepped aside without speaking, let her enter. But I left the door open, wide enough that anyone passing in the hall could hear. I wanted no privacy, no intimacy, just conversation. You have 30 minutes, I said, returning to my desk chair. Craig isn't here. Say what you came to say. She sat in the chair across from me, leaned forward, hands clasped like prayer. But I'd stopped believing in prayers. I knew. Her voice came out small. About Craig's plan. Not all of it, but I knew he wanted to scare you. I picked up my pen, held it steady. Continue. He said if you got really sick, not dying, just sick enough, you'd realize life is short, that you'd change the will to give me access to money sooner in case something happened. He said it was psychology. Pressure. I didn't think he'd actually try to kill you. My hand tightened on the pen, only visible sign of what I felt. But you knew he put something in my food. Something to make you sick? Her words came faster now, rehearsed. Not poison. I thought it was like food poisoning, something that would pass in a day. I stood, walked to the window, back to her. Couldn't watch her face while she constructed this fiction. When did you know it was poison? Real poison? At the hospital. Her voice broke. When the doctor said your organs were shutting down. When you were in the coma for 3 days. I was terrified. I wanted to tell someone, but Craig said if I did, I'd be arrested too. He said we'd both go to prison. So you chose to protect him instead of me. I'm sorry. I was scared. I made a terrible mistake. But I'm here now, telling you everything. She stood, moved toward me. I'll leave him. I'll testify against him. I'll do whatever you want. Just, please don't cut me out completely. I'm your daughter. I turned from the window, looked at her directly. You knew and stayed silent while I was dying. That makes you an accomplice, Edith. I was manipulated. You made a choice. You chose him and his plan over my life. I'll divorce him. Desperation crept into her voice. I'll leave him with nothing. I'll cooperate with the police. Just tell me what you want me to do. I'll fix this. There's nothing to fix. You can't undo silence. You can't undo betrayal. I walked to the door, opened it wider. No, Edith, you made your choice. She stood, face flushing. So that's it? You're just going to throw me away, your only child? You threw yourself away when you let him poison me. I stepped aside, gesturing to the hallway. Goodbye, Edith. She stared at me. 3 seconds. 5. Then turned and walked out, pulling the door shut behind her with shaking hands. I listened to her footsteps cross the foyer. Front door opening, closing, car engine starting, driving away. I returned to my desk. The chair she'd occupied was still warm. I stared at it, then picked up my phone. Margaret Huang, please. Pause. Ms. Huang, it's Percy Riley. I want to confirm if something happens to me, the trust is ironclad? My daughter can't contest it? I listened to her response. No, nothing's wrong. Just making sure all the pieces are in place. The next days passed in strange quiet. Craig and Edith moved out on schedule, loading boxes into a rental truck on gray Saturday morning. I watched from the upstairs window, neither looked back at the house. When they were gone, I walked through empty rooms, master bedroom echoing, kitchen spotless. They'd erased their presence. They couldn't erase their betrayal. I spent the following weeks preparing. Detective Collins briefed me on trial procedures. The DA walked me through testimony. Facts only, no emotion. The jury needs to see you're credible, the prosecutor said. Calm, clear, dignified. Can you do that? I could. The night before trial, I pressed my suit, selected a navy tie, laid out medical records, timeline documentation, hospital photographs, everything organized. Morning arrived cold and clear. May in Atlanta, spring turning to summer. I dressed carefully, checked my reflection. The man looking back wasn't the one who'd eaten dinner with Craig 4 months ago. Harder, leaner, eyes like steel. I drove to Fulton County Courthouse, found parking, walked up stone steps. Detective Collins waited at the entrance. Mr. Riley, ready? I nodded, stepped through security. Metal detector beeped. My watch. I removed it, tried again. Clear. Elevator to 3rd floor. Courtroom 3B. Doors closed, hearing in session. They're wrapping up jury selection, Collins said. You'll be called after opening statements. About an hour. I sat on the bench outside, waited, watched lawyers hurry past with files and phones. Inside that courtroom, Craig sat at the defense table. Edith somewhere in the gallery, both waiting for me to speak. A bailiff opened the door. The state calls Percy James Riley to the stand. I stood, buttoned my jacket, walked into the courtroom. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined from television. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, American flag behind the judge's bench, gallery packed with spectators, reporters with notepads, court sketch artist in the back row. Craig sat at the defense table, thinner than I remembered, cheap suit hanging loose on his frame. He didn't look at me as I passed. I raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth. Sat in the witness chair. Assistant DA David Chen approached, folder in hand. Mr. Riley, please describe the evening of January 15th for the jury. I looked at the 12 faces in the jury box. 7 women, 5 men. Ages ranging from mid-20s to 70s. They looked back, attentive. My daughter and her husband came for dinner. I prepared the meal. Roasted chicken, vegetables, salad. We ate in the dining room around 7 p.m. Within an hour, I felt severely ill. What symptoms did you experience? Nausea, difficulty breathing, rapid heartbeat. I called emergency services. I remember the ambulance arriving, then nothing until I woke 3 days later in the ICU. Chen nodded. What did Dr. Mitchell tell you about your son-in-law's actions at the hospital? He said Craig approached him with $15,000 cash and a vial of liquid. Craig asked the doctor to inject it into my IV while I was unconscious. Dr. Mitchell refused and reported it immediately. How did that make you feel? I paused, chose words carefully. I realized my son-in-law had tried to kill me twice, once with poison at dinner and again at the hospital, when the first attempt failed. Chen asked more questions. I answered each one precisely, without embellishment, pulled reading glasses from my pocket to review a medical document, maintained eye contact with the jury. When Chen finished, Craig's attorney stood, Marcus Webb, Public defender with tired eyes and a stained briefcase. Mr. Riley, isn't it true you changed your will shortly after waking from the coma? Cut your daughter out entirely. I restructured my estate, yes. Out of revenge? Anger? Out of self-preservation. Someone tried to murder me for my money. I removed the motive. You evicted your own daughter, demanded $250,000 you knew she couldn't pay. That seems vindictive, doesn't it? I charged fair market rent for 5 years of housing. That's business, not vindictiveness. Business? Or punishment because you suspected she knew about? Chen stood. Objection, speculation. Edith Riley isn't on trial here. Judge Thompson, a black woman in her late 50s with steel-gray hair, spoke from the bench. Sustained! Move on, Mr. Webb. Webb tried 3 more angles. I didn't take the bait on any of them. Eventually, he dismissed me. I returned to the gallery, sat in the back row, watched the rest unfold. Dr. Mitchell testified next, described the bribe attempt, the vial, his report to security. His voice was steady, professional, credible. A toxicology expert explained aconitine, plant-based poison, highly lethal, no legitimate medical use. Showed the jury photographs of the monk's hood plant it came from. Described how it stops the heart. Finally, video testimony from the darknet seller, face obscured, voice distorted, testifying under plea agreement. He confirmed selling aconitine extract to a buyer, matching Craig's cryptocurrency wallet address. Showed message records, transaction history. Craig's defense was simple because it had to be. Webb put Craig on the stand. I made terrible mistakes, Craig said, voice shaking, but I never meant to actually hurt anyone. I just wanted Percy to appreciate his life more, to realize how fragile things are. I thought if he got sick, just sick, not dying, he'd be motivated to change his lifestyle, maybe share resources sooner with Edith, in case something happened. It was absurd, transparent. The jury's faces showed they weren't buying it. Closing arguments took an hour. Chen methodical, cataloging evidence. Webb desperate, grasping at reasonable doubt that didn't exist. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. I sat in the hallway, drinking bad coffee from a vending machine. Detective Collins sat beside me, scrolling through her phone. When the bailiff called us back in, I knew from his face what the verdict would be. Has the jury reached a verdict? The forewoman stood, woman in her 60s, schoolteacher face. We have, Your Honor. We find the defendant Craig Brennan guilty of attempted murder with aggravating circumstances. In the gallery, Edith gasped, started crying. I didn't turn to look at her. Craig's shoulders slumped forward. His head dropped. Webb put a hand on his arm. Judge Thompson addressed Craig directly. Mr. Brennan, the jury has found you guilty of attempted murder with aggravating circumstances. Do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? Craig stood, legs shaking. Your Honor, I never meant to actually hurt anyone. I made terrible mistakes, but I'm not a murderer. You purchased poison online. You administered it to your father-in-law. When he survived, you attempted to finish the job in his hospital room. The evidence is overwhelming. Thompson's voice was cold. I sentence you to 18 years in the Georgia Department of Corrections. You'll be eligible for parole after serving 85%. Bailiffs moved forward. Handcuffs clicked onto Craig's wrists. He turned, looking back at Edith. She reached toward him across the barrier, but couldn't touch him. I stood, walked toward the exit, didn't look at either of them. Outside, evening light stretched long shadows across downtown Atlanta. Detective Collins caught up with me on the courthouse steps. 18 years, she said. Good outcome. He'll be an old man when he gets out. I nodded, adjusted my tie. Mr. Riley, I need to ask you something. Collins shifted her weight. We have enough to charge Edith Riley as an accessory. She paid bail knowing what her husband had done. If you're willing to testify about conversations you had with her, anything indicating prior knowledge, we can build a case. I watched cars pass on the street below, normal lives continuing. No, I said finally. No? I won't testify against my daughter. What she did, or didn't do, she'll live with. But I won't put her in prison. Collins studied my face. That's generous? After everything? It's not generous. It's final. She's lost her home, her inheritance, her husband, and her father. That's enough. The detective nodded slowly. Understood. Case closed then? She extended her hand. I shook it. I walked to my car, unlocked it, sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine. Through courthouse windows above, I could see movement. Edith, probably. Waiting for Craig's transfer, hoping for final words through reinforced glass. I started the engine, drove toward Buckhead, toward my empty house. Tomorrow, I'd call Margaret Huang, confirm the trust paperwork one final time. For now, I drove. The city passed by my windows. Spring becoming summer. I'd survived. I'd won. What came next was mine to decide. The calls started 3 days after the trial. Edith's number appeared on my phone screen. I pressed delete without listening to the voicemail. The next day, another call. Delete. 2 more that week. Delete. Delete. Letters arrived by mail, her handwriting on the envelopes. I returned them unopened, marked, return to sender. Emails filtered to spam automatically. I'd set the rule the day Craig was sentenced. 6 weeks of this. Late May through June. Each attempt ignored with systematic efficiency. I'd built a restaurant from nothing by focusing on what mattered and eliminating distractions. Edith had become a distraction. Early July brought a knock on my front door. I looked through the peephole. Edith stood there with a man in a suit, holding a folder. I opened the door 6 inches, chain still engaged. Mr. Riley, I represent Edith Riley Brennan in a legal challenge to the trust established in your name. He extended papers through the gap. We believe. Give me the papers. Sir, if we could discuss. I took the documents. No, you'll hear from my attorney. I closed the door, heard them talking on the other side. Didn't care what they said. Margaret Huang called within an hour of receiving my forwarded documents. She's claiming you created the trust under duress, diminished capacity, wants it invalidated so she can inherit. Margaret's voice was calm, almost amused. It's a weak case. Very weak. How weak? We have documentation of every meeting. Timeline showing you waited weeks after hospitalization. I'll request a psychiatric evaluation to prove competence. Judge will dismiss it quickly. How quickly? 2 weeks, maybe 3. I'll file our response tomorrow. The hearing took place mid-July in civil court. Different building, different judge from Craig's trial. Judge Patricia Morrison, a black woman with steel gray hair and reading glasses that made her look like somebody's strict grandmother. I sat in the gallery while Margaret presented our defense. Watched Edith across the aisle, her attorney whispering urgently in her ear. Margaret was thorough, showed the timeline. Presented Dr. Richard Foster's psychiatric evaluation, comprehensive examination confirming I was of sound mind, under no undue influence, acting deliberately. The evidence is clear, Your Honor, Margaret concluded. Mr. Riley exercised his constitutional right to manage his estate as he saw fit. The trust was created with proper legal counsel, appropriate waiting period, and complete mental competence. The petitioner's claims are without merit. Judge Morrison read through the documents in silence, set them down, looked at Edith's attorney over her glasses. The petitioner argues that Mr. Percy Riley created a revocable living trust while under extreme emotional distress, following a poisoning attempt, suggesting diminished capacity. She paused. However, the evidence shows otherwise. The trust was established with the guidance of a licensed estate attorney. A court-ordered psychiatric evaluation finds Mr. Riley fully competent and acting of sound mind. The timing of the trust, created weeks after the medical emergency, demonstrates deliberate planning, not impulsive reaction. Another pause. Edith leaned forward. Motion to invalidate trust is denied. Your Honor, my client requests, with prejudice, Counselor, this matter is closed. The gavel came down. I left the courthouse while Edith was still arguing with her attorney in the hallway. Drove home, made coffee. Returned Margaret's call. She's in serious financial trouble, Margaret said. Her attorney is demanding payment. She has no income, no assets, no family support now. She'll likely file bankruptcy within 6 months. That's not my concern. As your attorney, I have to ask, do you want to offer any settlement? Sometimes a small payment can prevent future harassment. I considered it, calculated quickly. $25,000, one time. She signs a binding no-contact agreement. If she violates it, she repays the full amount plus legal fees. I'll draft it today. 3 days later, Margaret called again. She signed. Barely read it, just signed. The money transferred to her account an hour ago. Did she say anything? She asked if you were in the building. I said no. She asked if you'd ever forgive her. I said that wasn't part of our discussion. I stood at my study window, looking out at Buckhead. Good. That's done then. Yes. You're legally protected. She cannot contact you again without significant financial penalty. Thank you, Margaret. Send me your final invoice. The notification came via text later that evening. Agreement signed. Payment cleared. File closed. I read it twice, set my phone down, picked up my coffee mug, found it empty. Done. Legally, financially, emotionally, done. I walked through my house, room by room. Master bedroom, mine again. Guest rooms empty. Kitchen spotless. Living room arranged how I preferred. No moving boxes, no tension, no voices arguing behind closed doors. My house, my life, my terms. Outside, afternoon sun slanted through the trees. Summer in Atlanta, thick and green. The garden needed work. I'd let it go during everything. Weeds in the flower beds, grass overgrown. Tomorrow I'd call a landscaping service, get recommendations, maybe hire someone part-time. Not to avoid the work, but because I wanted it done right. The house phone rang. Margaret Huang. Just confirming you received my text. Everything's executed. The agreement is filed. Your estate is secure. Unless she violates the no-contact terms, you'll never hear from her again. Thank you, Margaret, for everything. You're welcome. Take care, Mr. Riley. You earned your peace. I hung up, stood in my study surrounded by certificates on the walls, business awards from my restaurant years, community recognition, framed photos of establishments I'd built, who I'd been before, who I was again, now. July ended with thunderstorms, heavy rain that washed the streets clean and left the air smelling of wet earth. I sat on my back terrace, watching lightning fork across the sky. Thought about the year so far. January's poisoning felt like a lifetime ago. August tomorrow, a new month. Time to think about what came next, instead of what had happened. My phone buzzed. Detective Collins, I answered. Mr. Riley, thought you'd want to know. Craig Brennan got into an altercation at Georgia Diagnostic and Classification Prison, fighting with another inmate. Earned himself 30 days in segregation and a mark on his record. I sipped my morning coffee on the terrace. August heat already building even at 8 a.m. That affects his parole eligibility? He won't be eligible for 12 years minimum anyway, but yes. Disciplinary violations make parole boards very reluctant. He'll serve most of his sentence, probably all of it. Good. Thank you for letting me know. How are you doing? Settling back into normal life? I am. The house is quiet. I'm keeping busy. You did everything right, you know. Legally, I mean. You could have taken matters into your own hands, gotten messy. Instead, you used the system. Made it work for you. I'm too old for messy. I wanted justice, not revenge. Her slight laugh came through the phone. Looked like both from where I was standing. Take care, Mr. Riley. After hanging up, I spent an hour in the garden, pulled weeds with gloved hands, clearing space around the azaleas. The physical work felt good, accomplishing something tangible, immediate. A landscaping service came twice weekly now, professional crew that knew their business. But I still maintained parts myself. Ownership meant engagement, not delegation of everything. At 2 p.m., I drove to Octane Coffee in Midtown, found parking on the street, walked in to find Robert Chen at a corner table, 2 cappuccinos already ordered. Percy? He stood, shook my hand. Been too long. 5 years since you came to the restaurant closing party. 5 years since you swore you'd never work another day in food service. He grinned. So what's this meeting about? I sat, told him an abbreviated version of what had happened. The poisoning, the trial, the aftermath. He listened without interrupting, face growing more serious. So your son-in-law tried to kill you for your money, and you systematically destroyed his life using lawyers and property law? I protected myself. He destroyed his own life. Still, that's cold-blooded, my friend. Impressive, but cold. I smiled slightly. I learned from the best. You remember how we dealt with that supplier who tried to shake us down back in '08? Documentation, lawyers, and patience. He grinned back. Fine, you learned well. So what's this meeting actually about? Restaurant project, small place, 30 seats, dinner only, High quality, not high volume. You serious? You said you were done with the business. I was done building an empire. I'm not done cooking. Not done creating. I leaned forward. Maybe something intimate. Reservation only? Seasonal menu? Maybe Virginia Highland area. You'd need staff, permits, investors. I'd need a partner who remembers why we got into this business. Because we loved food. Loved the craft. The money came later. Can you remember that feeling? Robert paused, looked at his cappuccino, looked back at me. Yeah, I can. So talk to your wife. Think about it. I'm not in a hurry. We talked for another hour, sketched rough concepts on napkins, argued about whether to focus on New American or Southern fusion, laughed about disasters from our early restaurant days, the night the walk-in freezer died, the reviewer who hated everything, the Thanksgiving we ran out of turkey at 7 p.m., normal conversation, normal life. I drove home as evening approached, pulled into my driveway, stood at my front door looking into my house before entering. Everything as it should be. Everything mine. Everything safe. Inside, I made dinner. Simple pasta, vegetables, glass of wine. Ate on the terrace as the sun set. Watched the sky turn orange, then purple, then deep blue. My phone buzzed. Text from Robert. Talk to my wife. She's in if you are. Let's look at that space in Virginia Highland next week. I typed back. Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock. Sent. The calendar on my wall showed August 10th. 6 months and change since Craig poisoned my dinner. 7 months since I'd trusted my daughter. A lifetime since I'd been naive. I'd learned, adapted, survived, more than survived. Won. Craig Brennan would be 60 years old before walking free. Maybe older, maybe never. Edith was out there somewhere, living a smaller life with money I'd given her and boundaries I'd enforced. And me? I was free. I walked to my study, opened the safe, looked at the trust documents one final time. Closed the safe, spun the lock. Everything secure, everything protected, everything mine. Tomorrow I'd thank Margaret properly, maybe send a gift. Thank Detective Collins with a donation to the Police Foundation, close the loose threads, then start the restaurant project. Not because I needed the money or distraction, because I wanted to create again, because I could, because the best revenge wasn't destruction, it was living well. I walked upstairs, my bedroom, my bed, my peace. Before sleeping, I looked out the window. Buckhead spread before me, lights twinkling in summer darkness. Somewhere out there, people were being betrayed, poisoned, lied to, stolen from. I hoped they fought back, hoped they survived, hoped they won. I'd shown it was possible. Percy Riley closed the curtains, lay down, and slept without dreams. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your